Look up at the night sky. Between the constellations of Canes Venatici and Coma Berenices, there is a patch of void so empty, so utterly black, that for centuries astronomers ignored it. They saw nothing. But the nothing was lying. Because inside that darkness, hiding behind a curtain of cold gas and ancient dust, sits an object so monstrous, so violent, that it doesn't just challenge the laws of physics, it laughs at them. It breaks them. Its name is TON 618. And if you think you know what a black hole is, you are about to be very, very wrong. The story begins in 1957, not with a telescope, but with a telephone book. The Tonantzintla Observatory in Mexico was conducting a survey of blue stars. Astronomers used photographic plates, glass slides coated in silver gelatin, to capture the light of the cosmos. An intern at the time, a man whose name history barely remembers, noticed something strange on plate number 618. A faint smudge. A blue star that wasn't really a star. 40 years later, in the 1990s, the Hubble Space Telescope finally resolved what that smudge was. It wasn't a star. It was a quasar, a quasi-stellar radio source. To understand TON 618, you must first understand the lie of a quasar. A quasar looks like a star, but it outputs the energy of 1 trillion suns. The only engine in the universe that can produce that much energy is a supermassive black hole eating its host galaxy alive. But when scientists ran the numbers on TON 618, the calculators didn't just freeze. They broke.
We measure distance by redshift, how much the universe has stretched the light. For most quasars, the redshift is 2 or 3. TON 618 scored a 2.219. That doesn't sound high, but that number tells us we are looking back 10.8 billion years. 10.8 billion years ago, when the universe was a toddler, TON 618 was already a monster. But distance wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the width of its emission lines. There's a specific signature, the hydrogen-Balmer alpha line. In a normal quasar, this line is thin. In TON 618, it is absurdly wide. The only way to make that line fat is to have gas orbiting a central point at relativistic speeds, thousands of kilometers per second. Using the virial theorem, a math trick that weighs a black hole by the speed of its orbiting debris, the astrophysicists did the calculation. They checked their work. They checked it again. Then they called their colleagues and said, "You're not going to believe this." Let's give you a yardstick. The black hole at the center of our Milky Way, Sagittarius A star, is 4.3 million times the mass of our Sun. That is a big number, but it fits in the orbit of Mercury. It is tidy. Now, look at TON 618. TON 618 is 66 billion times the mass of the Sun. 66 billion. To write that number, you need 11 zeros. But mass is abstract. Let me make this visceral. If you replaced our Sun with TON 618, you would not see it, because it has no surface. But its event horizon, the point of no return, would stretch far beyond the orbit of Pluto. It would engulf our entire solar system 68 times over. The Schwarzschild radius of TON 618 is 1,300 astronomical units. 1 AU is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. Multiply that by 1,300. That is the size of the shadow. To fly around it at the speed of light would take you nearly 3 weeks. But here is where the true story becomes a horror story. That 66 billion Sun number, it cannot exist. We have a law, the Eddington limit. It states that when a black hole eats matter, that matter gets hot and blasts out radiation. That radiation pushes back on the infalling gas. There is a speed limit to growth. If a black hole eats too fast, the light pressure blows its dinner away like a leaf blower hitting a pile of dust. For TON 618 to have reached 66 billion solar masses by the time the universe was only 3 billion years old, it would have had to eat an entire galaxy's worth of matter every single day for a billion years straight. It would have to exceed the Eddington limit by a factor of 10,000. Astronomers call this the impossible growth problem. We have no mechanism in standard physics to build an object this large, this fast. It is like finding a blue whale inside a bathtub. Theorists have tried to save the model. Maybe, they said, the jets weren't as bright. Maybe the Eddington limit is flexible. But then we looked at TON 618's accretion disk again, that beautiful, terrifying disk of plasma spinning at the edge of the event horizon. The disk of TON 618 produces 140 trillion times the luminosity of our sun. It is the brightest object in the known universe. It is so bright, it outshines its own host galaxy completely. The galaxy is a ghost. The monster is the stage light. So no, you cannot hide the growth. The light proves the mass. The mass breaks the timeline.
There is one escape hatch. It's a theory called direct collapse. Imagine, in the early universe, instead of forming a star, a massive cloud of primordial hydrogen, poisoned by ultraviolet radiation to prevent cooling, collapses directly into a black hole. These seeds would be massive, 100,000 suns right out of the gate. If TON 618 started as a direct collapse seed, maybe, just maybe, it could have grown this big. But that theory has a problem. We've never seen direct collapse happen. It requires a perfect storm of ultraviolet radiation that we don't think existed. And even if it did, 66 billion is still pushing the limit. TON 618 is the evidence that our models of the early universe are missing a chapter, a big one. We call it a black hole because it breaks physics, but we usually mean it breaks general relativity at the singularity. TON 618 breaks everything else first. Let's go inside, hypothetically. You are in a spaceship falling toward TON 618. For a small black hole, you would be spaghettified, stretched like pasta before you cross the horizon. You die instantly. But TON 618 is so large, 1,300 AU across, that the tidal forces at the horizon are gentle. You would cross the event horizon and not even notice. That's the terrifying part. TON 618 is so massive that the gravity gradient over the length of your body is near zero. You would sail through the horizon intact. But here is where the logic breaks. Once you are inside, there is no inside. Not as we understand geometry. Space becomes time-like. The singularity is no longer a point in space, it is a moment in your future. You cannot avoid it any more than you can avoid next Tuesday. But in TON 618, the singularity is not the only hole.
Because of the insane mass, the photon sphere, the ring where light orbits the black hole, is vast. Inside TON 618, you would see the entire history of the universe painted on the back of a warped horizon. You would see the light that fell in billions of years ago, still circling. You would see the death of stars that went extinct before Earth formed. But you wouldn't see it for long, because at the center of TON 618, conventional physics ceases. Quantum mechanics says information cannot be destroyed. General relativity says that at the singularity, everything is destroyed. TON 618 is the arena where these two theories go to war. And right now, TON 618 is winning, because it exists, and our math is the one that explodes. But we've been looking at the monster. Let's look at the victim. The galaxy that hosts TON 618 is a luminous galaxy, but we barely see it. Why? Because the radiation from the accretion disk is literally evaporating the galaxy. A quasar this bright doesn't just shine, It creates a galactic wind moving at 8,000 kilometers per second. That wind is stripping the galaxy of the cold gas needed to form new stars. Astronomers call this quasar feedback. TON 618 is killing its home. It has heated the intracluster medium around it to millions of degrees. Any star being born within 1,000 light years of this beast is aborted. The gas is torn away before gravity can finish the job. Here is the irony of TON 618. It is the most powerful engine of destruction in the known universe, but it is blind.
It has no eyes. It has no intent. It is simply a flaw in the fabric of reality, so deep that it is eating the fabric around it. We call them black holes because light cannot escape. But TON 618 is a black hole because hope cannot escape. Yet TON 618 is 10.8 billion light years away. It is a relic. The light we see left that object when the universe was a quarter of its current age. In the local universe, today, there is no TON 618. It has likely grown even larger. It is possibly 100 billion solar masses now. But we will never see that. We only see the ghost of its youth. So why tell this story? Why obsess over a monster that can't hurt us? Because TON 618 is a stress test for reality. Look at your hand. The atoms in your skin were forged in the heart of a star. Those stars exploded, seeding the galaxy. Now look at TON 618. It contains 66 billion suns worth of material. That material was not destroyed. It is still there, crushed into a volume smaller than an atom. We do not know what happens at that center. We call it a singularity, but singularity is just a polite word for we have no idea. Some physicists, like Dr. Carlo Rovelli, argue that singularities are not real. They are a sign that general relativity is lying to us, that quantum gravity will smooth out the point into a Planck star. Others, like Dr. Leonard Susskind, say black holes are the simplest objects in the universe, made of nothing but curved space and entropy, that TON 618 is just a giant fuzzy ball of quantum information. But the true story of TON 618 is not about mass or light or gravity. The true story of TON 618 is about scale. We humans live between a millimeter and 100 years. We think we are the measure of all things. But TON 618 is a reminder that the universe permits structures of violence and majesty that our brains literally cannot encode. If you were an ant on a leaf floating in the Pacific Ocean, you would not know the ocean exists. We are the ant. TON 618 is the ocean, and the ocean is full of trenches we will never reach. TON 618 isn't just a black hole. It is a message carved into the skin of the cosmos. It says, physics, you are incomplete. It sits there, 10 billion years away, pulling in light, breaking our equations, and mocking our certainty. We called it TON 618 because it was the 618th object in a dusty catalog. But its true name is simpler. It is the place where the universe looks back at us, and we look away. Thanks for listening. Keep looking up, but maybe not toward Cain's Venatici.